found at mile 108 of the Seward Highway a week ago belonged to a woman who had long dark hair. To police, she is Jane Doe. They don't know who she is yet, but now they believe they know how she got here.
Are your name and date of birth correct on there?
48-year-old Brian Stephen Smith.
Got about $2,000.
An immigrant from South Africa is charged with her murder. According to one of his neighbors, police surrounded his home on a quiet cul-de-sac in Midtown Tuesday, broke down the door and collected evidence well into the night, including a black Ford pickup registered to Smith and his wife. Then police met Smith at the airport as he returned to Anchorage from a trip. They say Smith is on that side of the courtroom glass today because a woman found an SD card with evidence on it and turned it in to APD.
Had the citizen not called us after she found the video card, we would not have been able to solve this crime as quickly as we did.
The woman said she had found it on the ground near 13th Avenue and Fairbanks Street. According to charging documents, images and videos on the card were created on September 4th through 6th at the Town Place Suites by Marriott Hotel in Midtown. They appear to show Smith beating a woman and strangling her repeatedly. The woman, silenced by cruelty, would be found almost a month later. But due to his own voice, an accent detectives recognized, police believe now Brian Smith will have to answer for the crimes.
I agree that he should remain in custody for the remainder of his life with no possibility of ever being released. And in this regard, I find that it is necessary to confine for essentially 2 life sentences. And that is to ensure that he's never released and in order to protect the public.
The last words his victims hear is, "In my movies, everybody always dies." Brian will always make sure his camera is in a perfect angle to capture the last moment of his victim, while he laughs in excitement, echoing with a loud voice saying, "What are my followers going to think of me?" There are no followers. There is no audience. Just a woman dying on the floor of room 323 at a Town Place Suites hotel in Anchorage, Alaska. She's naked, beaten, her body covered in bruises and cuts. She's struggling to breathe, moaning in agony, trying desperately to fight back. But the man behind the camera isn't finished with her yet. The woman on that hotel room floor was 30 years old Kathleen Jo Henry, an Alaska Native woman from the small village of Eek. The man torturing her to death was Brian Stephen Smith, a 52-year-old South African immigrant who worked at the hotel and had rented that discounted room specifically for what he was about to do. And the phone recording this nightmare? It would end up stolen by a sex worker who charged it, discovered what was on it, and made a decision that would expose one of Alaska's most brutal serial killers. This is the story of 2 murdered women, both Alaska Native, both vulnerable, both treated like they were disposable. This is the story of a predator who believed he could get away with murder because his victims were invisible to society. And this is the story of how 1 stolen phone, 1 brave witness, and 1 horrifying SD card labeled homicide at Midtown Marriott would bring a monster to justice. Before we continue, I need you to understand something. This case contains some of the most disturbing evidence ever presented in an Alaskan courtroom. The videos Brian Smith recorded were so graphic that only the jury was allowed to see them, though everyone in the gallery could hear his voice taunting his victim as she died. If you're following this case, if you want to understand how a seemingly ordinary man became a sadistic killer, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Drop a comment below and tell us, how do we protect society's most vulnerable from predators like Brian Smith? Let's get into it. Kathleen Jo Henry was born in 1989 in the tiny Alaska Native village of Eek, a community of fewer than 400 people on the western coast of Alaska, accessible only by plane or boat. Life in Eek was hard, isolated, governed by subsistence hunting and fishing, and plagued by poverty. Like many young people from rural Alaska, Kathleen eventually made her way to Anchorage, Alaska's largest city, seeking opportunities that didn't exist in her village. But Anchorage can be a brutal place for Alaska Native women, especially those struggling with addiction and homelessness. Kathleen fell into both traps. By 2019, she was living on the streets, battling substance abuse and doing sex work to survive. She was one of thousands of invisible women in Alaska, women society often ignores until they disappear. Veronica Rosalind Abuchuk's story was hauntingly similar. Born in 1967 in the Alaska native village of Stebbins, another remote community on Alaska's western coast, Veronica was a mother and a daughter who struggled with alcoholism. Her daughter, Christy Grimaldi, would later testify that as a child she didn't understand her mother's addiction, but as an adult she felt deep compassion for Veronica's struggles. She would even speak about going to treatment and it not being a good experience for her, Grimaldi said through tears. Like Kathleen, Veronica eventually ended up in Anchorage, experiencing homelessness and battling her demons. She was last seen by her family in July 2018. When she didn't come home, when she stopped calling, her family reported her missing in February 2019. But by then Veronica had been dead for months, her body dumped in the wilderness north of Anchorage with a bullet wound in her skull. Both women were Alaska native. Both were vulnerable. Both were struggling to survive. And both crossed paths with Brian Stephen Smith, a man who saw their vulnerability as an opportunity. Brian Stephen Smith was born on March 23, 1971, in Queenstown, South Africa, during the height of apartheid. He grew up in a country where racial segregation was law, where white South Africans held all the power, and where black South Africans were treated as second-class citizens. This environment would shape Smith's worldview in disturbing ways. As an adult, Smith developed a pattern of expressing deeply racist views. In 2014, he posted a rant on Facebook referring to black South Africans as savages. On Quora, an online question-and-answer platform, Smith wrote multiple posts claiming that black people were statistically more likely to commit crimes, writing, "White people don't assume it, everyone assumes it when they look at police crime statistics." These weren't isolated comments. They reflected a mindset, a belief that certain people were less than human, that their lives had less value. This dehumanization would become central to understanding Smith's crimes. Smith eventually emigrated to the United States and became a naturalized citizen in September 2019, just days before he would torture and murder Kathleen Jo Henry. He settled in Anchorage, married a woman named Stephanie Bisland, and appeared to live a normal, unremarkable life. He worked at the Town Place Suites Hotel in Midtown Anchorage, earning a modest income and blending into the community. But Smith had a dark secret. He regularly picked up sex workers, women experiencing homelessness, women he believed no one would miss if they disappeared. And at some point, picking them up for sex wasn't enough. He wanted to hurt them. He wanted to kill them. And he wanted to record it. The first woman Brian Smith killed, as far as investigators know, was Veronica Abuchuk. The exact date of her murder is uncertain, somewhere between mid-2017 and August 2018, but what happened is chillingly clear thanks to Smith's own confession. Smith picked up Veronica in Anchorage while his wife Stephanie was out of town. He took Veronica to his home, a decision that shows how confident he was that he could get away with murder. Once there, Smith asked Veronica to shower, claiming she had an odor. Veronica refused. That refusal enraged Smith. He retrieved a green pistol from his garage, returned to the living room and shot Veronica Abuchuk in the head, execution style. Then he disposed of her body like garbage, driving north of Anchorage to a remote area and dumping her remains where he believed they'd never be found. 4 months, Veronica lay there, her family desperately searching for her, not knowing she was already gone. It wasn't until October 2019, more than a year after Veronica's murder, that Smith would tell police where to find her body. By then, only her skull remained, a bullet hole clearly visible, confirming Smith's confession. But Veronica Abuchuk wasn't Smith's last victim. She was just the beginning. On September 2, 2019, Brian Smith checked into room 323 at the Town Place Suites Hotel where he worked. Because he was an employee, he received a discounted rate for the room, which he booked from September 2nd through September 4th. He brought with him his smartphone, fully charged and ready to record. Smith picked up Kathleen Jo Henry somewhere in Anchorage. She was homeless, desperate, and likely grateful for the offer of a warm place to stay. She had no idea she was walking into her own execution. What happened in that hotel room over the next several days is almost too horrific to describe. Smith didn't just kill Kathleen Henry. He tortured her. He sexually assaulted her. He beat her. He strangled her repeatedly, releasing his grip just before she died, then doing it again, prolonging her agony for his own sadistic pleasure. And he filmed everything. The videos and photos recovered from Smith's phone show Kathleen naked on the hotel room floor, her body covered in bruises and blood. In some images, she's still alive, moaning, struggling to breathe, trying to fight back. In others, she's clearly dead, her eyes vacant, her body limp. Smith can be heard narrating throughout the footage, speaking in his distinctive South African accent, making jokes, singing along to AC/DC, taunting Kathleen as she dies. "Do people need to learn how to die these days?" he asks at one point, as if teaching a lesson. "You live," he says, pressing on her throat. "You die. Release. You live. You die." The first images on Smith's phone showing Kathleen's body were time-stamped at approximately 1 a.m. on September 4, 2019. The torture and murder likely went on for hours. The last image, dated September 6, shows Kathleen's blanket-wrapped body in the back of Smith's black Ford Ranger pickup truck with a white topper. Surveillance video from the hotel captured Smith wheeling Kathleen's body out of the building on a luggage cart, casually pushing it through the parking lot as if he were checking out with regular baggage. He loaded her into his truck and drove south of Anchorage to a rural area near mile 108 of the Seward Highway, where he dumped her body alongside the road. On October 2, 2019, nearly a month after Kathleen's murder, her remains were discovered by someone driving along the Seward Highway. By then, her body had been exposed to the elements and wildlife. The condition of her remains was so poor that identifying her would take time. But Brian Smith had made a critical mistake. He'd kept the evidence. He'd kept the videos and photos on his phone, souvenirs of his crime, trophies he could revisit whenever he wanted. And that decision would be his undoing. Valerie Kassler was a sex worker and a survivor. She'd experienced homelessness, struggled with addiction, and done whatever was necessary to get by in Anchorage's brutal streets. On the night of September 30, 2019, she encountered Brian Smith. Kassler's story about how she came into possession of Smith's phone has changed multiple times over the years, a fact the defense would later use to attack her credibility. Initially, she told police she'd found an SD card labeled "Homicide at Midtown Marriott" lying on the ground. Later, she admitted that wasn't true. She said she'd been on a date with Smith and stolen the SD card from the center console of his pickup truck. Eventually, she told the full truth. She'd stolen Smith's entire phone while he was at an ATM getting cash to pay her. When Kassler charged the phone later that night, she made a discovery that would haunt her for the rest of her life. The phone contained images and videos of a woman being beaten, raped, and murdered. Kassler saw Kathleen Henry's tortured body. She heard Brian Smith's voice narrating the killing. She realized she was looking at evidence of a murder, and possibly evidence that could get her arrested. Kassler was terrified. She knew if she went to the police with Smith's phone, she could be charged with theft and prostitution, both criminal offenses. She didn't know that Alaska law had been changed in 2016 to give sex workers immunity from prostitution charges when reporting violent crimes, a reform specifically designed to encourage witnesses like her to come forward. So Kassler made a decision. She transferred 46 images and one video from Smith's phone to an SD card she'd stolen from a department store. She labeled the card "Homicide at Midtown Marriott." Then she contacted the Anchorage Police Department on September 30, 2019, and told them she'd found the card in a parking lot. It was a lie, but it was a lie that would save lives. Detective Brendan Lee of the Anchorage Police Department was the first investigator to view the contents of the SD card Valerie Kassler turned in. What he saw would become the worst thing he'd ever witnessed in his career. "Up until now, that's the worst thing I've ever seen happen to anybody," Lee would later say. The SD card actually contained 39 photos and 12 videos, more than Kassler had initially reported. The footage showed Kathleen Jo Henry's final moments in excruciating detail. Lee watched as Smith tortured her, strangled her, sexually assaulted her, and narrated his actions like he was directing a film. But the most important clue came from Smith's voice. Detective David Cordy, who'd been involved in a prior investigation involving Smith, immediately recognized the distinctive South African accent. Cordy knew exactly who they were looking for. Police began pulling together the evidence. Cell phone location data showed Smith's phone in the same rural area south of Anchorage where Kathleen Henry's body had been found on October 2. Hotel records confirmed Smith had rented room 323 at Town Place Suites from September 2 through September 4. Surveillance footage showed Smith wheeling a luggage cart with what appeared to be a body wrapped in a white sheet through the hotel parking lot. On October 8, 2019, Brian Stephen Smith arrived at Ted Stevens Anchorage International Airport after returning from an out-of-state trip. Anchorage police were waiting for him. He was arrested without incident and taken into custody. Over the next 8 hours, detectives interrogated Brian Smith at the Anchorage Police Department. The interrogation was videotaped, and that footage would later be played for the jury during Smith's trial. At first, Smith tried to deny everything. But as detectives confronted him with the evidence, the photos, the videos, the cell phone data, the hotel records, Smith's story began to crumble. Finally, he admitted it. Yes, that was him in the videos. Yes, he killed Kathleen Jo Henry. But Smith claimed he had no memory of doing it, a convenient excuse that allowed him to admit the facts while avoiding full responsibility for his actions. Then Smith dropped a bombshell. Kathleen Henry wasn't his only victim. There was another woman. Her name was Veronica Abuchuk, and he'd killed her about a year earlier. Smith described how he'd picked up Veronica in Anchorage, taken her to his home, and shot her in the head after she refused to shower. He told detectives exactly where he'd dumped her body, in a remote area north of Anchorage. Police went to the location Smith described and found a human skull with a bullet wound. DNA testing would later confirm it was Veronica Abuchuk, the woman her family had been searching for since 2018. Smith's confession was detailed, methodical, and chilling. He showed no remorse, no emotion, no sense that he'd done anything wrong. To Smith, these women were objects, things he could use and discard without consequence. As the investigation continued, detectives uncovered more disturbing evidence. In Smith's home, they found additional devices containing deleted images and videos. Some of these files showed Veronica Abuchuk's body after her murder, Smith toying with her corpse, moving it around, treating it like a prop. But the most alarming discovery was a series of photos found on Smith's phone showing other women, Alaska Native or Asian women, who appeared to be unconscious, beaten, or dead. One photo showed a woman with a distinctive butterfly tattoo on her shoulder. The family of Cassandra Boskovsky, a missing Alaska Native woman, recognized that tattoo immediately. They had Cassandra declared legally dead, convinced she was another of Smith's victims. Police also uncovered text messages and Facebook messages between Smith and a man named Ian Calhoun, a heavy metal drummer. The messages suggested Calhoun knew about Smith's murders. In one exchange, Smith appeared to be trying to arrange for Calhoun to help him dispose of evidence or even commit additional murders. When prosecutors tried to compel Calhoun to testify at Smith's trial, he refused unless granted immunity from prosecution, suggesting he may have been more involved in Smith's crimes than anyone initially realized. All of this evidence painted a picture of a man who wasn't just a killer, but a serial killer, someone who'd been murdering vulnerable women for years and would have continued if Valerie Kassler hadn't stolen his phone. On February 6, 2024, more than 4 years after Smith's arrest, his trial finally began in Anchorage Superior Court. Judge Kevin Saxby presided. Prosecutors Brittany Dunlop and Heather Nobrega represented the state. Defense attorney Timothy Eyre represented Smith. The courtroom was packed. Family members of Kathleen Henry and Veronica Abuchuk filled the gallery, many wearing red, the color associated with missing and murdered Indigenous people. Advocates for Alaska Native women attended every day of the trial, determined to ensure the victims weren't forgotten. Prosecutor Brittany Dunlop warned the jury in her opening statement about what they were about to witness. "You will all carry the burden of knowledge," she said. "I'm sorry that you will carry the burden of this heavy, heavy knowledge. But I'm going to ask you to convict the defendant of everything he's charged with." The trial lasted 3 weeks. The jury heard testimony from dozens of witnesses, including Valerie Kassler, whose credibility the defense tried relentlessly to destroy. Eyre called her a comfortable and constant liar, pointing out the multiple times her story about how she obtained Smith's phone had changed. But the prosecution had something far more powerful than Kassler's testimony. They had the videos themselves. On February 13, 2024, the courtroom fell silent as Detective Brendan Lee took the stand to introduce the video and photo evidence. Cameras in the courtroom turned away from the large monitor in the center of the room. A graphic content warning appeared on the live stream. Only the jury and those in the courtroom gallery were allowed to view the actual footage. For 20 agonizing minutes, the jury watched Kathleen Jo Henry die. They heard Smith's voice taunting her. They saw him torture her, strangle her, sexually assault her. They heard him sing Thunderstruck while he killed her. They watched him wrap her body in a sheet and load it onto a luggage cart. Brian Smith sat in the courtroom, his hands folded in his lap, showing no emotion as the videos played. He watched his own crimes with the same detachment as if he were viewing someone else's home movies. Family members fled the courtroom in tears. Advocates sobbed openly. Some jurors wiped their eyes. The prosecution also played Smith's 8-hour police interrogation, in which he confessed to murdering both Kathleen Henry and Veronica Abuchuk. They presented cell phone data, surveillance footage, DNA evidence, ballistics reports on the bullet that killed Veronica, and testimony from forensic experts. The defense's strategy was simple: attack Kassler's credibility and argue that the police had coerced Smith's confession through psychological warfare during the interrogation. Ayer told the jury the police had reverse-engineered a crime based on what they think they saw on the video. It was a weak defense and everyone in the courtroom knew it. On February 22, 2024, after 3 weeks of testimony, closing arguments were delivered. Prosecutor Heather Nobrega reminded the jury of everything they'd seen and heard. The defendant violently and brutally murdered 2 women, she said. That is why we are here today. That is why the state is asking you to convict Smith of the crimes charged, and that the state has proved its case beyond a reasonable doubt. The case was handed to the jury at 12:30 p.m. They deliberated for less than 2 hours. At approximately 2:30 p.m., the jury returned to the courtroom. Brian Stephen Smith, 53 years old, stood as Judge Saxby read the verdicts. Guilty on all 14 counts. 2 counts of first-degree murder. Multiple counts of second-degree sexual assault. Tampering with physical evidence. Misconduct involving a corpse. Guilty. 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 The jury also found that an aggravating factor applied to Kathleen Henry's murder. Smith had subjected her to substantial physical torture. As the verdicts were read, family members of the victims wept openly. Someone in the gallery whispered, "Kathleen and Veronica got justice." Brian Smith showed no reaction. He stared straight ahead, emotionless as he'd been throughout the entire trial. After the jury was dismissed, Veronica Abuchuk's sister, Rena Sapp, stood outside the courthouse, tears streaming down her face. "They're at peace now," she said. "That's the most important thing. And for me, her sister, Veronica's sister, and Kathleen's family, it's been too long, and today is a life celebration and a spiritual celebration." It was February 22, 2024. Valerie Kassler's birthday. On July 12, 2024, Brian Stephen Smith returned to court for sentencing. Judge Kevin Saxby had reviewed all the evidence, all the testimony, and all the victim impact statements. He was ready to deliver a sentence that would send a message. Before sentencing began, prosecutors released additional photographs found on Smith's phone, including images of an unidentified Alaska Native or Asian woman who appeared to be beaten or unconscious. They also released a forensic sketch of the woman, hoping someone might recognize her. Authorities believe she may be a third victim. Prosecutor Brittany Dunlop addressed the court, her voice heavy with emotion. "As long as I've been doing this work, I still believe that most people are good and there are very, very few truly evil humans in the world," she said. "Mr. Smith is one of them. He is a person that should never be permitted to walk among us. He should spend the rest of his life in jail, and your sentence should make a statement that the women's lives that he stole so brutally mattered." Christy Grimaldi, Veronica Abuchuk's daughter, gave the only victim impact statement. She looked directly at Smith and said, "Forget the defendant's name and remember, Veronica Rosalind Abuchuk and Kathleen Jo Henry." Judge Saxby spoke at length about the case, about the dehumanization of the victims, about the broader impact of Smith's crimes on society and especially on women. "Those killings actually affect all of society, and especially women in our society," Saxby said. "It's the stuff of nightmares. They strip women of any feelings of safety in their own neighborhoods. That damage continues long after the crimes are solved." Saxby recounted Smith's own words from the videos, the taunting, the cruelty, the casual violence. He says, quote, "You're alive and you die. And you're alive and you die," the judge said, reading from the video transcript. "So, I guess I need to stop this because the blood is getting to the floor." The judge concluded by saying he didn't believe Brian Smith could ever be rehabilitated. Smith took joy in killing, Saxby said. He wasn't someone who'd made a mistake or lost control. He was a predator who enjoyed inflicting suffering. Then Judge Saxby delivered the sentence. For the murder of Kathleen Jo Henry, with the aggravating factor of substantial physical torture, 99 years. For the murder of Veronica Abuchuk, 99 years. For the remaining 12 counts, including sexual assault and tampering with evidence, 28 years. Total, 226 years in prison. Brian Smith, now 53 years old, will die behind bars. Alaska does not have the death penalty, so this was the harshest sentence possible under state law. Smith did not speak at his sentencing. He did not apologize. He did not show any emotion. His wife, Stephanie Bisland, sat in the gallery directly behind him, but he never turned to look at her. He simply stood, accepted his sentence, and was led away in handcuffs. 2 jurors from the trial attended the sentencing. One of them, Michael Stewart, told reporters the sentence was justified. It was the law being executed to the letter, he said. Even with Brian Smith behind bars for the rest of his life, many questions remain unanswered. How many women did he kill? Police believe there were at least 3, possibly more. The unidentified woman in the photos found on his phone has never been located. Cassandra Boskovsky's body has never been found, though her family is convinced she was one of Smith's victims. Investigators with the Anchorage Police Department and the FBI have conducted an international investigation, looking into Smith's past in both the United States and South Africa. What did he do before he came to Alaska? Were there victims in South Africa? In other American states? Then there's the disturbing question of Ian Calhoun, the man who exchanged messages with Smith that suggested he knew about the murders. What was Calhoun's involvement? Was he complicit? Did he help Smith? Did he commit crimes of his own? Calhoun was never charged, and he refused to testify without immunity. In July 2025, Alaska's news source released a documentary titled Kathleen, Joe, and Veronica. Who else? The Search for Brian Smith's Unwritten Victims. The documentary included a 3-hour interview with Smith himself, conducted in prison, in which he denied being a serial killer. Well, that's nasty, that, Smith said when asked about the label. But I don't blame them, because that's what the police and the DA took to the media. Smith's denial is meaningless. He was convicted on video evidence showing him torturing a woman to death while narrating his actions like a filmmaker. He confessed to shooting another woman in the head and dumping her body in the wilderness. He kept photos of other unconscious, beaten women on his phone. Whether he admits it or not, Brian Stephen Smith is a serial killer. It would be easy to reduce Kathleen Joe Henry and Veronica Abuchuk to statistics, to tragic footnotes in the story of a killer. But they were so much more than that. Kathleen Henry was 30 years old. She came from the village of Eek, a place where everyone knows everyone, where the land and the water define life. She had a family who loved her, a community that mourned her, and a life that was stolen before she had a chance to find her way. Veronica Abuchuk was 52 years old. She was a mother to Christy Grimaldi, who loved her despite her struggles, who understood as an adult what she couldn't comprehend as a child. Veronica had sisters, including Rena Sapp, who attended every day of Smith's trial to honor her memory. Veronica was a daughter, a sister, a member of the Stebbins community, and someone who deserved far better than the death she received. Both women were Alaska Native. Both struggled with addiction and homelessness. Both were failed by a society that too often treats such women as invisible, as disposable, as less important than others. Judge Saxby addressed this directly during sentencing when he said he wanted to use the victims' full names instead of just initials. They were treated as something other than human, and they were dehumanized, Saxby said. Christy Grimaldi echoed this in her victim impact statement. Forget the defendant's name and remember Veronica Rosalind Abuchuk and Kathleen Joe Henry. The case of Brian Stephen Smith matters for reasons that go far beyond the horror of his crimes. It matters because it exposes the vulnerability of Alaska Native women, particularly those experiencing homelessness and addiction. These women are disproportionately targeted by violent predators because their marginalized status makes them easy victims. It matters because it shows how racism and dehumanization can lead to violence. Smith's history of racist statements, his view of certain people as savages, wasn't separate from his crimes. It was foundational to them. He targeted Alaska Native women because he didn't see them as fully human. It matters because it demonstrates the courage it takes for witnesses like Valerie Kassler to come forward. Kassler was a sex worker who stole a phone and risked arrest to report a murder. Without her, Smith would have continued killing. Her bravery saved lives, even though she was vilified by the defense and had her credibility attacked throughout the trial. And it matters because it shows that justice is possible, even in cases where the victims are marginalized and the evidence is difficult to confront. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours. They saw the truth and they acted on it. Now I want to hear from you. Do you think Brian Smith killed more women than the 2 he was convicted of murdering? Should investigators in South Africa reopen cold cases to see if Smith was involved in unsolved murders there? And what more can be done to protect vulnerable women, especially Alaska Native women, from predators like Smith? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell because we'll continue covering cases involving missing and murdered Indigenous people. Share this video with anyone who cares about justice for marginalized victims. And most importantly, remember their names. Kathleen Jo Henry, Veronica Rosalina Butchuk. They were real women with real lives and they mattered. Thanks for watching.